either.
Thank you so much, Naz. Right to our top story today. Government ministers are to meet later to consider measures into clearing the names of hundreds of sub-postmasters convicted in the Post Office Horizon scandal.
Well, the Post Office is now being investigated by the police over potential fraud offences arising from its prosecution of staff. More than 1 million people have also now signed a petition calling for the former CEO to be stripped of her CBE.
Tim Brentnell, a former sub-postmaster convicted of fraud, who is still waiting for full compensation, is our first guest this morning. Tim, first up, welcome to Talk Today. I don't know if you know this, but I did a special on the Horizon Post Office scandal a year ago on JK Live, and I'm amazed that it's taken this long. I'm delighted as well, but I want to try and explain to people, Rosie and I this morning, as much as we can. My question to you would be this, my friend. Let's hear your story to give people a flavour of what it's like to have been a sub-postmaster whose life was torn to shreds, to be fair.
Yeah, so I bought, along with my parents, our local village shop and post office back in 2005 as a way to enable me to stay in West Wales, in Pembrokeshire, and build a career. I ran it well for 5 years until I was audited in 2009. A shortfall of £22,500 was found, which the post office or the auditors helpfully said to me I needed to pay back to avoid a theft charge. As soon as I paid that money back by raiding my savings and my parents' savings, I was then prosecuted for false accounting, which initially I was determined to plead not guilty to. But my barrister sat down with me and explained that I'd been standing up in Crown Court against the Post Office or the Crown, and it would be very unlikely that I would win. And if I pled not guilty, I would probably end up being found guilty and sent to prison. So I ended up pleading guilty to false accounting to try and avoid a prison sentence.
It's just extraordinary, isn't it, Rosie?
Thank you so much for joining us, and I appreciate there's now much greater scrutiny on this story, thanks in part largely to the drama that ITV have been telling. But I think what people can't really get their heads around is presumably when things first went wrong for you, did you have faith that, you know, someone somewhere was going to be able to work it all out and go, right, that's the mistake, we can get it sorted?
Yeah, I knew I hadn't done anything dishonest or wrong. Back in 2010, I didn't realise it could have been a computer problem. But I sort of explained to the auditors and then the post office investigators that I didn't understand what had happened. I offered them my bank accounts and access to everything to say, look, I haven't taken this money. It's not anything dishonest on my part, but I don't understand what's happened. Before the money was paid back, all they were interested in was telling me that, you know, it was my responsibility to pay it. It's in my contract that losses are down to me. And then as soon as it was paid, they then said, well, you know, this is false accounting.
And I think taking Rosie's point a stage further as well, my friend, is people who have just been woking up to this story by watching the ITV drama and people who are reading about this, and we'll talk in much detail about, you know, the post office and to tick. We'll have two basic questions, and you tried to answer it there. You knew that you'd done nothing dishonest or wrong, and yet the legal system, your barrister, the huge body that is the government, the post office, were pinning this on you. Do you think at that moment, if you'd said, no, I'm not paying it back, I'm not giving you my savings for something I didn't do, do you think it would have changed the course of what happened to you? Or was it such a frightening time that you felt that you were alone when, in fact, ironically, there were thousands like you, my friend?
Yeah, well, every sub-postmaster that I've met since, you can tell we were all honest people. You had to be honest, completely honest, and completely of a clear background to even be given the position of being a postmaster. So the threat of a custodial sentence was absolutely terrifying. And it was almost like firefighting, just doing everything within your power to avoid that threat.
And Tim, you're going through acute financial stress, emotional stress, presumably the people around you as well. You're now the subject of conversation to the people that you've been serving as customers who are thinking, no smoke without fire.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the retail business that we had suffered greatly because people assumed that I either had my hand in the till or literally taking pensions from pensioners. And although I tried to maintain my honesty and my innocence, once you've pled guilty, people just say, well, you've pled guilty to something. We wouldn't plead guilty if we hadn't done anything. So that no smoke without fire has rung very true for the last 15 years.
Obviously, as Rosie said just then, the ITV programme has reawakened this interest in this story, and quite rightly too. Nick Wallace, who we'll hear later, did an investigation. We talked about it some time ago. People are waiting for conversation. What I want to say to people who are waking up who don't know about the Horizon Post Office scandal, and I'm not saying that you're one of the fortunate ones, Tim, but people died still not having cleared their names. People tried to take their own lives. Later on in this show, Janet Skinner, a mother of two, who remembers vividly telling me, she said, I remember the door shutting on the prison cell and I knew I had done nothing wrong. This is beyond disgusting. And the Met has launched a criminal investigation. Yesterday, Sunak says this is disgraceful. They got the dates wrong. Impressive. What do you and these other wronged people want, Tim? What do you want at the end of the line?
There are a few points that I feel are really important. First of all, the ITV drama did a great job of not just saying it was a computer problem. The biggest problem is the way that the post office has treated us all. Ropey IT systems exist everywhere, and they could have taken it just as it was, but they decided to prosecute us and then deny us justice for the last decade and fight us tooth and nail every way through the steps that we took to try and rectify it. But what we really feel, and I really feel we need the post office to be removed as arbiters of any compensation schemes, because they're the people that prosecuted us and denied us justice. So how is it fair that they're now allowed to be in charge of deciding and making us jump through hoops to get to where we need to be financially?
Tim, I had no idea. Sorry. They will decide the compensation, the very organisation that has been denying the injustice they did to you all for years. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's almost like we're in litigation again with the post office, and they're fighting us every step of the way with it.
It's just...
there were 700 people convicted. So far, only 93 of us have managed to get our convictions quashed. And as I heard an interview last night with Lord Falconer calling for the government to step in, he said they could do it tomorrow if they decided to. They could introduce legislation that would just cancel all of those convictions without it having to go on for decades if it carries on at the pace it's at the moment, for those other people to have their convictions quashed.
Tim,
and we just need
For now, Tim, thank you. There's so many stories like yours, but to you and your parents, I really appreciate you sharing the story. And let's hope, by talking about this story repeatedly, again and again, we get you that justice. Peter Carbell, Talk TV's political commentator here. Rosie and I are almost open-mouthed. The government could introduce legislation tomorrow that will quash 700 convictions, only 93 people who have taken their own lives. This is an absolute disgrace.
And it's been going on for many, many years as well, Jeremy. And yes, people are waking up to it because of the ITV drama, and that's great that they're doing so. Excuse me, that they're doing so. But at the same time, there's so much to this. It's gone on for such a long time. This has been in plain sight in many publications and many places. You did a documentary on it a year ago. There are lots of different publications, like Private Eye, for example, been campaigning on this for years. It has been so clear that the Horizon system didn't work, that the post office decided to blame some of the most honest people in our country, pillars of the community, especially if you're in a small town or a village. I'm from a village. I know the sub-postmistress is an incredible person who everybody completely trusts. And all these people went through absolute hell. So today, ministers are meeting to talk about this. We've got the Justice Secretary who's talking to the Post Office Minister about this. They could, though, as Tim correctly says, they could sort this today. They could say, do you know what? All these convictions are clearly unsafe. There is no doubt about this. The system was completely flawed from its inception, from the very start. Let's just sort this out and let's compensate these people.
There seems to be a bit of sort of discussion currently when sub-postmasters have their convictions looked at. If Horizon was a material part of their conviction, those things have been looked at. But there are hundreds of others that haven't. What exactly is the Justice Minister looking at in terms of solutions,
Where is
quick solutions, that might mean more people get compensation that they deserve far faster.
Yes, well, there is a public inquiry going on at the moment. There has been some compensation. Came out of a court case a few years ago, but you're talking about £20,000, which sounds like a lot of money. But actually, when you think of the huge amounts of money that these people have often had to put back in and have had their livelihoods taken
Tim,
away.
for example, had to pay a £22,000 shortfall.
Yeah.
That's before any of the kind of legal fees, compensation, anything.
And losing his business and maybe his home
and
as well.
Reputation as well. In that community, you talked about
people won't recover
the village
from it.
you live in, your family, that they are the bedrock. To me, again, it's only 6:15 in the morning. Rishi Sunak and the Tories are floundering on a I don't even know how best to describe how unpopular they are right now. Surely this is an example of where a government and a prime minister, whether beleaguered or not, should come forth and say, we're going to bring legislation in because, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Well, Jeremy, you're absolutely right. And we're in a situation where the government, all these people, including Tim, have had the awesome power of the system working against them. This is a really, really clear way in which this system, the government, could say, do you know what, we're going to sort this out. And we're going to do it really, really quickly. And
because there is money earmarked for compensation, about 750, and a fraction of that has been claimed so far. So
well,
why
the problem
that process
is they're going through it. I'm sorry to interrupt you. They're just going through it case by case, each person saying, how much do you deserve versus how much do you deserve? That takes a long time, but these people just do not have the time. A lot of
Can I bring Tim back in? One of the things that's in the newspapers today and has been widely reported, Tim, is that Paula Venables, if that's the right way to say a stupid name, the CEO of the Post Office, 1 million people in this country, showing how good we are, have signed a petition saying her CBE ought to be returned. Somebody upstairs said to me earlier, Tim, oh, is it really her fault? Yes, she was at the centre and the head of the Post Office, which is still, apart from having made these terrible errors of judgment, is the arbitrator. I think she should most definitely be brought to task, shouldn't she?
Exactly. Yes. I mean, she said in front of a select committee back in 2015 that as a CEO, the buck stops with her.
Yeah.
The woman is a proposed Christian minister. Why hasn't she just handed it back?
Where's the repentance?